Okay, hello to everyone. This is the third webinar of the Asian Pacific Evolution Landscapes webinar series. Today we are looking at the national evolution policies and systems in India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. This webinar follows the published book, Institutionalization of the Evolution in Asian Pacific, explores case from the 11 countries. I'm a moderator for the session. I'm a Tsivengarel, the member of the Promoting National Evolution Policies and Systems, and also them of the Asian Pacific Evolution Strategy. Welcome to this activity to all of you. I have a quick reminder to keep your microphone and videos disabled so that the internet is conserved for everyone and event quality is better. Whatever comments you have or questions, please put them into the chat box. Thank you. First, I will invite Professor Yoko Ishida, who is the president of the Asian Pacific Evolution Association, along with further welcome remarks. Microphone is yours, Professor Yoko.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining this very important webinar. So I'm Yoko Ishida. I'm president of Asia Pacific Evaluation Association. So as our MC already mentioned, this webinar is sort of a product and then feature key insights from the published book, Institutionalization of Evaluation in Asia Pacific, from 11 countries and 2 multilateral agencies. So we look forward to that. I'm sure that we can learn a lot from the presentation and dialogues of today's webinar. So we can have the expert speakers from India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. We can share their findings and experiences and analysis results through this webinar. Thank you very much. That's all from me, and we look forward to the having a very fruitful moment during this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Yoko, and I'm happy to invite our today's speakers. Let me share my screen. Okay, I will start to introduce the Professor Rajiv Nandi, the chairperson of the Community of Evolution South Asia. I'm invited to speak, Professor Doctor.
Thank you so much for inviting me. May I share my screen or? Yeah. Okay,
yes,
great.
you can share yours.
Sure. Just give me a moment. Can you see my screen?
Yes, thank you. Please, slideshow.
Yeah, I think it's already there in slideshow.
Yeah, now it's
great. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Really happy to be here today for this very important webinar and discussion. I'll be presenting on national evaluation policies and systems in India, evolution, current state, and future directions. My presentation primarily will be based on the chapter that we published a year back in the book that we already talked about, that institutionalization of evaluation in Asia Pacific, and that chapter was co-written by me with Dr. Rashmi Agarwal and Mr. Bandharao. Okay, so to discuss about national evaluation policies and systems in India, I'll start by looking at the historical context of monitoring and evaluation in India. India's constitution, dating back to 1950, which doesn't mention monitoring or evaluation per se, but implicitly mandated monitoring and evaluation through its emphasis on equal access to rights and resources for every citizen. Since then, monitoring and evaluation has been a vital part of India's planned development. The first 5-year plan in 1951 formally integrated monitoring and evaluation into development planning. M&E was embedded to ensure development programs achieved their intended goals. And in the next year, in 1952, the Program Evaluation Office was established to monitor public expenditure, emphasizing accountability and transparency. So over time, monitoring and evaluation has become an integral part to large-scale programs in socioeconomic development, health, education, and infrastructure. Today, the Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office, called DMO in short, under Niti Aayog, that's the highest policy think tank of the government of India, leads India's national M&E efforts, prioritizing efficiency, effectiveness, and transparency. Different central government ministries and state governments maintain decentralized M&E systems in India, often contracting independent organizations to ensure the objectivity of the programs. Many states have also established evaluation boards, with Karnataka, one of the southern states of India, pioneering a state-level policy for development program evaluations. This decentralized approach enables tailored evaluation practices across sectors and regions. So this is the slide on role of DMU, the Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office that I mentioned just a couple of minutes back. So issue slide shows that role of DMU in 6 interconnected areas in driving data-driven policymaking, creating various guidelines. Its focus on institutionalizing rigorous performance tracking by creating different M&E frameworks, strengthening the M&E ecosystem, utilizing cutting-edge technologies, and identifying weakness to improve government program effectiveness and efficiency. Now, despite India's achievement, several challenges remain. First and foremost, India lacks a formal evaluation policy, leading to inconsistencies across sectors as far as standard framework methodologies are concerned. Often, the departmental evaluation guidelines are not reviewed for years together. Budgets for evaluations are limited, often favoring the lowest bids, which can impact the quality and the standard of evaluation. Additionally, smaller organizations face capacity constraints, hindering their ability to conduct high-quality evaluations. Just to mention here that India has a huge body of civil society organizations. Small and big, all those organizations together may come around 3 to 4 million organizations in India. So addressing these challenges is essential for strengthening the evaluation ecosystem in India. As I already mentioned about the presence of a large number of civil society organizations, these organizations contribute significantly to M&E by advocating for accountability and transparency. However, they often lack resources and rely on external consultants, limiting their impact. Public and parliamentary interest tends to focus on accountability with less emphasis on learning and programmatic improvement. Expanding public discourse on evaluation finding could help drive programmatic adjustments and reinforce evaluation's role in policymaking. We are witnessing a shift in evaluation practices in India in recent years, moving away from purely quantitative methods to more towards mixed method approaches. These integrate qualitative insights for a comprehensive understanding of impacts. There's also a growing emphasis on independent evaluations, ensuring unbiased findings. We also observed that the commitment for gender equity and inclusion have been heightened in the recent years within the evaluation frameworks aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. We might say that The evaluation findings have influenced policy adjustments on programs like Mahila Samriddhi Yojana, which is basically a program of women's economic empowerment, and Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, that's a program primarily on housing for the socially and economically poor people. So underscoring that evaluation's role in program enhancement. However, a gap always remains in India because India is still struggling to establish a formal mechanism to systematically track and reinforce evaluation recommendations at every level, from village level to national level, which limits the full potential of these findings in driving sustainable improvements. Capacity building to strengthen evaluation practices the Evaluation Community of India, the ECOI, the National BOPI of India, is actively promoting standards, capacity building, and advocacy for a national evaluation policy. Recently, evaluation capacity development consortium has been formed by 15 different organizations, primarily to develop a mission for standardizing M&E practices in India. And with evaluation increasingly recognized as an accountability tool, there is a strong potential for M&E to drive evidence-based policymaking in India. The key takeaways. In summary, India has made significant strides in developing M&E systems, but a formal national evaluation policy remains essential. Unified standards and capacity building efforts are crucial for empowering stakeholders, ensuring evaluations function and accountability tools. Ongoing efforts by Community of Evaluation South Asia, Evaluation Community of India, and the newly formed Evaluation Capacity Development Consortium continue to build momentum for establishing a national evaluation policy to further institutionalize and standardize M&E practices. So I should like to stop here, but would be happy to respond to your questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Rajib. And let's go to the next speaker. Okay, let me introduce our next speaker, who is the Ms. Amna Akul, Director of the Center for the Learning on Evaluation and Results for Pakistan and Central Asia. Dear Amna, please share your screen. Microphone is yours.
Thank you so very much. Yes, can you see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Wonderful. Firstly, I would like to thank you for making me part of this, very important webinar and being among such illustrious speakers. The few of the learnings that I would like to share from the chapter that we have written, and just to summarize it, in a nutshell, let me just begin that Pakistan as a state, as a country, after its independence in 1947, had gone through a number of turbulent political instability, and there have been frequent government changes ever since. So we have never had a stable environment to work with. And along with that, pairing with economic challenges made it even further difficult to have systems which can then carry on and then can be built upon. Having said that, more and more, firefighting and quick results had become the common agenda of every government that comes in. But with that, when we specifically talk in this environment, the M&E capabilities and capacities within the government and within the system, we are still at a very nascent stage, even after 70 years of our independence. We do have a planning commission. The planning commission was formed in the late 1950s, and it has been going through major changes ever since. And today it is under the Ministry of Planning and Development and Special Initiatives, and it is directly headed by the Minister of Planning. From where we begin, the systems and structures have always been there. So at federal level, we have the Planning Commission, and then at the different provinces, we have 4 provinces and 2 administrative territories. We have individual planning and development departments. In terms of that infrastructure, it has always been there. And with every government change and more of donor intervention and the money being pumped into the country and different initiatives and the focus on SDGs, the importance of evaluation has been there, and it has been increasing, and different M&E units have been set up in different departments. However, evaluation remains a fragmented practice. We don't yet have a national evaluation policy. We do have frameworks in place. We do carry out evaluations at sector level and at provincial level. However, we don't have many government-led evaluations to date. We are very much dependent on the donor-led evaluations, and as a like a systemic environment, we don't reuse the evaluation results. From the point of view of learning, evaluation to date is termed as accountability, or as something that can be seen from a carrot and stick perspective. So we're still at that building block where we are talking about building the culture of evaluation. In terms of infrastructure, we are very much there. And we are growing as we go along. So just even in terms of that infrastructure, while the demand for evaluation is increasing, whether there is focus on SDGs, whether post-COVID, and all these changes and instability, there is also a growing demand from the public, the citizens, because where is the money being spent, where are the major projects happening, how is it actually benefiting the citizens? So that demand is also growing. At the same level, what we see is that the funding that is apportioned for M&E is not sufficient, whether at the federal level or at the provincial level. I'll just take a moment here to further explain that we also have 18th Amendment that was carried out, and with that we have devolution of power with the provinces. So a lot of autonomy is with the province, with many of the major sectors or ministries, for example, health, education, and population. So we do see a little bit of flux when it comes to funding. Certain provinces, they have a much more bigger portion on M&E that they spend, for example, in Punjab, whereas we see in some other provinces, it's not the case. Collectively, if we see, it is 0.0001%, as opposed to the budgets that they have for these projects. So not that much focus. Theoretically, we do talk about evaluation. Theoretically, there is an understanding that it needs to be done. But when it comes to practicality, funding becomes a blockage. Secondly, even when we go and we try to implement it, we do see a constraint at HR level. So just how do you carry out an evaluation, whether it's planning commission or whether they are PNDs, even with those set of frameworks, we are unable to actually carry out evaluations due to resource constraint. And as I mentioned, due to these varied provincial approaches, M&E sometimes, it becomes part of some either political economy or the preferred projects or special initiatives that current government wants to focus on. So what happens is that at the end of the day, we don't have a comprehensive framework that the whole country is leading by. But as we go through these, I wouldn't want to really show further, more negative picture, because these are the ground rules. But having said that, what we have been doing in the past few years, because of this devolution of power and the provinces becoming stronger, we have set up special monitoring and evaluation units, which are working very actively. There have been some evaluations even at government level, whether it's at the education sector level for the project. So, there are evaluations carried out for the academic structure. Then the EHSAS program, the program that we have, it was earlier called Benazine Income Support Program, one of the largest in the world. We have evaluations being carried out for that. But once again, it does not culminate into a national picture. So to date, if we say where we are standing at the moment, the definition of evaluation is not even very precisely mentioned in our constitution. So theoretical information is there, but then evaluation as a practice, we are still in the mode where the culture of evidence is being, really inculcated. And centers like us, which is the CLARE PCA, the VOPs, our other think tanks, are very actively working on building the capacity of different government units of planning commission. And we do see eagerness from the government as more and more understanding is getting developed. So with that, I would, stop here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has later.
Thank you, Ms. Amna, and let's move to our next speaker. Dr. Asela, and Director of the Center for the Evolution University of the Sri Lanka. Thank you. Invite you, Dr. Asela. The mic is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen quickly. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we are. Oh, yeah, it's nice. Thank you.
So I must thank Pia and all the organizers for inviting me for this webinar, and this is a great opportunity. I must also mention that this chapter about Sri Lanka National Evaluation System or institutionalization of evaluation in Sri Lanka in the Evaluation Globe Asia book was written by me together with Dr. Soma and Dr. Chamara Senaratna. So I must recognize their contribution also. Three of us were the authors of this chapter. Let me go, topic by topic. First, let me tell you about regulations for evaluation. Now, in Sri Lanka, we have the National Evaluation Policy approved by the government in June 2018, 6 years ago, more than 6 years. And then last year, September, the government approved the National Evaluation Policy Implementation Framework, because the government realized that having an evaluation policy doesn't mean anything, because of course, as you know, that there were some challenges in the country, especially economical aspects and development aspects. So implementation of national evaluation policy is important. So that's why the government launched the National Evaluation Policy Implementation Framework last year. At the same time, we have draft National Evaluation Bill finalized by the Parliament of Sri Lanka since year 2000, but it is not yet approved by the Parliament. And one important aspect of this National Evaluation Bill, it proposes to have independent commission for evaluation. And that independent commission would work with different ministries and departments for conduct of evaluations and also use of evaluation findings and recommendations. So that is important for regulations. But when it comes to regulations, especially regarding the requirement of this evaluation globe, we are not satisfying that requirement because we have national evaluation policy. There is no law. There is no specific regulation in Sri Lanka. Now, I also want to very quickly mention that Sri Lanka co-sponsored the UN resolution on strengthening voluntary national reviews through country-led evaluation. It was adopted by United Nations General Assembly on 26 April 2023. And there were about 25 countries co-sponsored this, and main sponsor was Nigeria, and Sri Lanka was one of the co-sponsors. And also Sri Lanka is party to UN resolution, which was passed in December 2014 about evaluation capacity building for the achievement of development results at country level. These two resolutions are very important for us. Now, when it comes to institutional setup for evaluation, the main designated department for monitoring and evaluation is Department of Project Management and Monitoring. As you can see, evaluation is not in the department name, but of course, both monitoring and evaluation is included in for the task of this department. And this is under the Ministry of Finance. And also we have Department of National Planning, which has officers in all the ministries and departments. So planning units, so planning cells in departments and ministries also undertake monitoring and evaluation tasks. The reason is that although we have the monitoring and evaluation department, they don't have cadre at the ministry and department or district levels. That's why planning cadre is involved in monitoring and evaluation. And we have Department of Budget, which is also doing budget monitoring. And one new development in Sri Lanka is the Parliament approved an act to establish budget office at the Parliament. So the Parliament can monitor the budget approved by the Parliament. Every year in November, the Parliament approves the budget for the following year. But this is to monitor that budget and see what are the accomplishments of that budget. And Parliament oversight committees are there, and also the National Audit Office also conduct performance audits. And accomplishments by the Parliament, I want to mention that there were 2 adjournment motions in 2016 regarding the National Evaluation Policy and allocation of funds for evaluation from the national budget. Both adjournment motions were debated in the Parliament, and we see the results now. We have the National Evaluation Policy, as well as now from this year, the government allocates funds for evaluation from the national budget. And also there was a budget speech in 2017 promising for establishment of the National Evaluation Policy. And in 2019, the Parliament appointed Select Committee on Evaluation, and Select Committee developed or prepared that National Evaluation Bill, and also recommended that it should be enacted, and also recommended to have a standing committee on evaluation within the Parliament, and upgrade Parliament Research Division to Parliament Research and Evaluation Division. And also there was a capacity building program for the Parliament Research Division. So there was a very important process within the Parliament for institutionalization of evaluation within the Parliament. Now, when it comes to social system, as per in any other country, the term evaluation is not widely known by the public, I must say. Not many evaluation reports are made available to public. And most of the current evaluations in the country are donor-driven. I think other speakers also mentioned, so many countries we can see that, so as in Sri Lanka. And therefore, many reports remain confined to donors only, or only for the implementers, not for the public. And citizens and civil society organizations usually participate in evaluations as respondents, and this is a passive role, not active role in evaluation, as we see. And projects implemented by NGOs are funded by donors. It is a donor requirement. So many projects implemented by NGOs are, it has a monitoring and evaluation component, which is embedded in the project itself. Now, professionalization part, of course, we have a very strong WOPE, Sri Lanka Evaluation Association, established in 1999, which is one of the oldest WOPEs in the region. And we have about 350 members. The association also developed competencies for evaluators. We have the competency framework developed for the country for evaluators in Sri Lanka. And in short, it's SLEVA. The association is a member of IOC, International Organization for Cooperation in Evaluation, and also Asia Pacific Evaluation Association, which is the which is the organizer of this webinar, as well as the regional WOPE and Community of Evaluators South Asia. So association is very active. This is the competency framework. There are 6 domains I just want to mention because now it's not that many countries have competency frameworks. There are 6 competency domains, 43 competencies, and 208 indicative behaviors. And also we have very strong academic program. Sri Lanka is offering academic courses. One of the main universities is University of Sri Javardhanapura. We have postgraduate diploma in monitoring and evaluation. We have completed 5 batches. We have advanced certificate in MNE. Now the second batch is going on at the moment with 55 students. Usually we take 30, but this time we had a big demand, 55 students, including people from ministries. We also have the MSc curriculum, and it is to be launched very soon. At the same time, Center for Evaluation, which I represent here, is also involved in curriculum development, promotion of courses through other universities. There are a few other universities already ready to offer courses. Even this morning, I had a meeting with one institution. They are going to start the course on 3rd of January. So we have, vibrant program for academic courses. And also the center is developing teacher training guide and teacher training as well. Career development in young professionals. We also have, young and emerging evaluators, I must say. So this is also important for the professionalization. Very quickly, I know that my time is passing. Some of the challenges, we don't have, as I mentioned, regulations per se in the country, only the policy. So we advocate for the regulations, the Act, National Evaluation Act. And then institutional setup, we need strong institutional setup, because now after launching the National Evaluation Policy Framework, government issued a circular from this year. All the ministries and departments should conduct evaluations. But our question is whether they have monitoring and evaluation units, whether they have competent evaluators, whether they have the technical knowledge, and whether they have guidelines sufficient for the evaluations, and whether they have designated staff for monitoring and evaluation. Use of evaluation is also a question, whether you conduct evaluations or not, and technical capacity of on monitoring and evaluation of the staff. Budget allocations. So with this circular, there's an allocation, but whether it's enough to conduct evaluations within ministries and departments is a question. And need-based development intervention should be ensured, because we have failure of development programs largely at the public sector. So that's one reason that the government launched the National Evaluation Policy Framework. Let me stop here, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for Dr. Silla, and let's invite our discussant, the Professor Reinhard Stockman, the Professor for the Psychology at the Saarland University and Director of the Center for the Evaluation. Professor Reinhard, mic is yours. Thank you.
Okay. You can see my presentation?
Yes, we can. Please put a slideshow.
Yes, now.
Yeah,
Okay.
now. Thank you.
So, Rajib, Amna, Azela, thank you very much for your excellent presentations, and also for giving us some new information about your countries, because you all have to know that what you could read in our book is, well, 1, 2, 3 years old. That is the information level, because you all know it needs some time before such a book is published. And the disadvantage of such a series of books about the institutionalization of evaluation in principle is that the information is getting old and things in the meantime happen. So that was very interesting to see what has happened in the last 1 or 2 years in your countries. Okay, so I would like just to remember you what the research goals of our evaluation project was. So actually, we intended to have a global description of the institutionalization of evaluation in all continents, selected countries in all continents. We have done a comparative analysis then of these case studies. And at the end, of course, we would like to know what the driving and hindering forces are for the development of evaluation, for the institutionalization, and for the use of evaluation in the countries. So also to give our listeners or participants today an idea what the methodological approach was. Of course, we have not written the case studies by ourselves. This has been done by experts of the countries. You have listened already to 3 of that experts about their countries. And what was important for doing a synthesis at the end of all of our publications, there's a synthesis of all the cases. It was necessary to use an analysis grid, and that was mandatory. That means all the orders have not just to write an essay about their country, they have to follow a framework, and this makes it possible for us to do a synthesis over the different items. Okay, we also used a glossary to clarify the terms so that there is a common understanding what evaluation is, that it's not monitoring, it's not audit, it's not performance audit, and so on, so that it was very clear what we mean with the term, so that also this is comparable. And in the end, we used some feedback loops to secure the quality. Okay, so today we talk about 3 countries, that's India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. And if you look at these indicators, I show you here, you see there are very big differences. You see the huge population of India in comparison to Pakistan, but of course, especially to Sri Lanka. But if it comes, for example, for the gross national product in US dollars per capita, you see there is also a big difference between Pakistan and Sri Lanka on the other side. If it looks at the life expectancy in years, you see there are lots of different. And if it comes to the Human Development Index and so on, we have, then that's interesting. Today, we are talking about democracies in all the 3 countries, which I think is an important issue. If you look in general on countries using evaluation, what kind of countries are these? And then we will find out that especially in democracy, parliamentary democracies, or if it is a parliamentary republic or a presidential democracy, this does not make a difference. But in all these countries, these are democracies using evaluation. But you see, if you have a look here at the democracy index, of course, there are differences between these 3 countries, or if you look at the press freedom ranking list. So as you see, the last one is number 180, and you see with the press freedom in these 3 countries, it's not the best ranking. And then this is in the middle. I would say it's also corruption shows that this is in some of the countries really a problem. Okay, so just to see that there are big differences between these 3 countries we talk about today. So first of all, you may remember we distinguish between 3 different systems: the political system, the social system, and the professionalization system. So first of all, let's have a look at the political system. And here we have used 2 dimensions. First, that's the institutionalization of evaluation. This is the formal aspect, asking, are there national laws and policies? Are there national decrees? How is evaluation embedded in the organizations, meaning ministries and authorities? And what is the role of evaluation in the audit offices? Are they doing only audits, or do they only use evaluation as an instrument? So that's about the institutionalization. And then on the other side, we have had a look at the use. Yeah. So is evaluation used by the parliament? Are they using evaluation for their decisions? Are there discussions about evaluation in the parliament? Or even are they commissioning evaluations? Sectoral spread is meaning in how many sectors, policy fields, is evaluation used continuously. And the scope of evaluation is meaning how depth, how intensive is evaluation used, which instruments or which kind of evaluations are they using, in which phases of a program, and so on and so on. So you see, we used these two dimensions, and the interesting thing here with Asia is that we noticed that there are some countries where there is very little institutionalization, and if there is little institutionalization, there is also little use of evaluation. But at the same time, and this is the case if you look at India, they also have only a very low level of institutionalization. Yeah, if we look at the national decrees, laws, the organizational embedding, and so on and so on, but they have, well, a quite good use of evaluation. So what does this mean? It means that actually our general hypothesis with which we started at the beginning, the higher degree of institutionalization, the higher the degree of use is not really working like that, because we have seen that there are some countries, they have, according to the hypothesis, no institutionalization, no use. And that's the case with Pakistan and Sri Lanka. If I say no use, then that does not mean that there is no use at all. It is use classified according to our criteria on a national level, okay? But at the same time, if you look, there is a medium degree of institutionalization, but a relative high degree of use, and that's the case of India. And what does this mean? That means, and if we look at now at all the countries, also in the other continents, that it is a good thing to have evaluation institutionalized, that this can force the development of evaluation. But of course, it is not sufficient to have institutionalization, and meaning then use will follow. That is not always the case. Yeah. But on the other side, we must say that in all countries we have investigated, that there is no use of evaluation without any institutionalization. So in some way, this hypothesis is shaken and is not that easy as mentioned here, but there is still a relation between institutionalization and the use of evaluation. Well, if we look at the social system, the picture in all the countries, in all continents, and that is really surprising, shows that the institutionalized use of evaluation is very low, meaning that civil society organizations very rarely use evaluations, commission evaluations, or conduct evaluations. So if they do it, then it's very often because of the donors. So the donors give them money, and then they are asking for evaluations, and then they do it, but not because of an internal motivation using evaluation. If we look in the public, in the civil society, what do they know about evaluation? Then we must say there is a very low knowledge and awareness of evaluation. The media do not report regularly about evaluations, and if it comes to the availability of evaluation reports, you see there's a great variety. But what we can say for all the countries is that actually civil society organizations do not request evaluations. Maybe the exemption in some countries are the VOPs. They are doing it, and of course that's their task. But they are not other big civil society actors, let's say as parties, unions, or other big associations of the civil society asking for evaluation and saying, put the government under pressure and say, what we want is that you evaluate because we want to know if your policy is successful or not. That's not the case. So that means the civil society is not really a driver of evaluation. If we come to the third system we have investigated, you can say the civil society and the political system. These two systems are the demand side. They are asking for evaluation. The professionalization system is the supply side. They produce the high qualified evaluators which are needed for doing evaluations. And if it comes to that, you see, there are very little university programs in Asia. There are not many journals, but you see in Pakistan, there is a journal of higher education, development and evaluation. All the countries we're talking about today, they have evaluation associations as the most other countries have, but they have not developed national evaluation standards yet. Okay, so if we look at the future challenges, we have heard already something about that, and I tried to sum it up or also to give some more aspects to that. Then we say, okay, in India, we can see a very inconsistent practice across sectors. There are some sectors where evaluation is done regularly, but there is a big differentiation between the sectors. There is only a limited institutional capacity. We have mentioned that in the ranking of the institutionalization is quite low, but still a lot of use of evaluation. But still they complain about a lack of resources. That means personal resources and financial resources for evaluation, that there are limited evaluation competencies, that there are no standardized evaluation criteria. And in India, we can notice that evaluation is very often used for accountability, a very strong focus on that, not so much on learning. If it comes to Pakistan and Sri Lanka, situation between these two countries is very similar. So there are, let's say, no regulations for the implementation, for the use of evaluation. There is inadequate staffing. The monitoring and evaluation units are missing, very limited financial resources, lack of evaluation capacities, no standardized evaluation criteria. The use of evaluation is not ensured, and the countries are characterized by political instability and economic restraints. We have already heard a little bit about that. And of course, this is influencing the institutionalization of evaluation and the use of evaluation. Okay, if we talk about the overall results, and here I mean not only the three countries, but of course it's also true for the three countries we are talking today, but also for all the other countries, then we can see that evaluation is policy driven. So that means the political system determines the demand and the evaluation topics. And the civil society is very clearly no driver of evaluation. And the use of evaluation by the civil society is quite low. And as we have seen, the professionalization and institutionalization and use of evaluation that we have not seen, I have not talked about that, but that's another observation, that the professionalization, that means the demand side and the supply side are decoupled. That means we have countries where the professionalization is high developed, but there is no big demand, and the opposite, which is it's quite an interesting a quite interesting result, and of course should be an important information for devotees what to do, especially in the countries where the demand is high and the professionalization level is quite low. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Professor Reinhardt. And let me share mine.
So, was muss ich jetzt tun? Oh, So, okay?
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you so much for all the speakers. Now our Q&A session is starting. We have few questions from the other participants. And the first one is the participant Fashal, and the question was the India and Sri Lanka. And this is the, are there any approaches or point included in a policy that have been most helpful in ensuring accountability and transparency in evaluation practice? Please, Dr. Rajiv and Amna.
Who is going first? It's for India and Sri Lanka. Are
Yes.
there any approaches or points included in the policy that has been most helpful in ensuring accountability and transparency in evaluation program? No, we don't have. In India, we don't have any evaluation policy, so no question of policy. But there are some systems, definitely. There are some systems and some guidelines. Good thing, as I mentioned in my presentation also, that Planning Commission initially till 2014 was the highest body in designing India's 5-year plans. And where they put monitoring and evaluation at the forefront. So most of those programs were regularly monitored and evaluated. Whatever way, though there is no standard and set criteria for that, but the practice was there in place. But I want to mention here, though the monitoring and evaluation is almost 75 years old practice in India, but the discourse of evaluation, the public discourse, the public discussion on evaluation, absolutely even now, it's almost not there. It's absent. So there is not much discussion. So the many relevant development stakeholders are still not aware about evaluation, though some of them might know about monitoring, but evaluation is still not discussed. I mean, it's not even reported, big evaluation reports when they evaluate big government programs. Unless there is some loopholes in the program, then only it will come in the news. Otherwise, it's not discussed. The learning part is very, very, invisible in India's evaluation landscape. Yeah, I'd like to stop here. Yeah.
Yes,
Please, okay.
I can go next. Yes. No, I think it's very similar to what Dr. Rajib just mentioned. Again, we don't have a policy. As I mentioned, we have infrastructure in place, but no policy. But I would just like to, drop this note here also. Even having a policy does not ensure that you are doing evaluation and you're using evaluations as they are supposed to be used. So it's also, a catch-99. While everybody does talk about having a policy in place, it's more to do with your mindset first, having a culture built in for learning, for using the evaluative evidence. And secondly, something very, important that Dr. Reinhardt mentioned was the demand and supply. So whereby we do have demand, but, we can't match it with supply. So at a larger framework, of course, there is no policy. But accountability and trust, that is why people are afraid of evaluations, because it is equated with accountability and transparency, whereas you are not supposed to look at evaluation from that lens. Evaluations is all about how you are monitoring your progress, your learnings, what needs to be done better, and then using it. So I think so far, as I mentioned earlier also, even if the evaluations that are carried out from the lens of, political economy, that what works. You do evaluations, or you use those results of evaluations which shows a more better side of your program achievements. So it is, it's again not something that is inbuilt into the system, but accountability is done through other measures, but not through evaluation.
Okay, thank you so much. And our next question is, Moses asked so many questions. As soon as we have time, I will come back from other questions if we have time. Okay, the first one is the whether is the standard definition of the term of national evaluation policies and systems. I think this is addressed for all our speakers, and please starting the Dr. Rajib.
Sorry, what's the question?
Whether there is the standard definition of the term national evaluation policies and systems in your country.
No, sorry, I don't think I will be able to respond to these questions because there is no policy. So I cannot say what is the what are the the best definition or what kind of definitions are there. As I think again and again the same thing we are talking. See, evaluation has different objectives. No, so one is definitely the accountability and transparency is absolutely the one key kind of objectives of evaluation. But we are again and again telling, these two things about the most important part of evaluation is the learning and utilization of that evaluation findings. Okay, so though Professor Reinhardt mentioned, we have slightly better picture in India about the utilization of evaluation, but I still we are not very sure because a lot of these things are not discussed in public domain. How those evaluation findings are used and utilized or communicated even to the relevant policymakers. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And how about Ms. Amna? Also, the Dr. Asela.
Yes, I think because once again, they're not rooted in any document, they are used interchangeably, right? So whether you're talking about national evaluation system, of course, policy and systems, these are two different things. I think the question was in detail. The systems you need to have in place, whether it's in terms of infrastructure, the processes, and manual, but the policy directs of what needs to be done, how is it mandated for the ministries and for the government to actually carry it out. So I mean, definition wise, these two things are different, but otherwise, I think NEPS or NES, or even sometimes evaluation, people confuse assessment, evaluation. So, these terms are thrown and used very interchangeably. But maybe another round of webinar might be suitable to have this discussion more in detail.
Okay, thank you so much. And Dr. Asela?
Yeah, let me also add to what Dr. Rajiv and mentioned. At the same time, I also want to add something about the previous question because it was about India and Sri Lanka, right? The transparency and accountability. Now, in Sri Lanka, the evaluation policy was actually drafted in 2003, and then it was endorsed by the government in 2018, 15 years of the first draft. So we had all these, important terminologies, accountability, transparency in the document, and then, time to time it changed as well. But the final evaluation policy endorsed by the government is completely different from the original document or later versions, because it was a very condensed document which has limited text on it. But at the same time, there was, good debate or discussion about all these aspects, how evaluation can contribute to accountability, transparency, and Dr. Rajiv mentioned about learning. Now, we are talking about not only accountability, we are talking about learning, and learning is more important than, of course, these are, both are important, but learning is more important to improve our own activities, right? So this is part of that. But now, somehow, as Amla also mentioned very rightly, having a policy doesn't mean anything. So the government realized that we had, many challenges in the country and, failed development projects because we did not have good monitoring and evaluation system. Although we had the evaluation policy. So implementation is very important, and also see what is the governance system and how to improve the governance, and also accountability, and how we learn from our own programs and improve them to have development results. This is more important. So that's why the government started implementing the national evaluation policy, mainly because of accountability and learning. The government learned that, or realized that there is no accountability. That's why now at one point the government also had an assessment or progress report that the major mega projects, only 12% success in Sri Lanka, 88% failure, right? So this is about accountability and learning as well. Okay, that's what I wanted to mention about Sri Lanka regarding the previous one. Now, regarding national evaluation policies and systems, of course, now we have to see, when it comes to national evaluation system, what are the ingredients of that system? For me, national evaluation policy or other regulations are part of the evaluation system. To have a good system, there should be regulations, so at least evaluation policy, right? Guidelines, those are the ingredients for me. But as other speakers mentioned, this terminologies are mentioned or used interchangeably, but there are definitions as well. If you take UNEC literature regarding national evaluation systems, or even National Evaluation Capacities Initiative of UNDP, they have, if you go to the website, and there are some resource materials. The definitions are there. Anyone who wants to go to details can refer to these documents. But this is a very important question, because now in the evaluation, institutionalization of evaluation also, we are talking about what are the main areas that will help to institutionalize evaluation in a country or within an organization, right? So likewise, even for evaluation system, to have a strong evaluation system, there are some ingredients. So I think learning that is very important for me. Evaluation policy is one for such a system. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Silla and Dr. Reinhardt.
If I may come in, I just have to add what we have already heard. And it's true that if we talk about national monitoring or evaluation systems, that's interchangeable. Some countries, they say, okay, we focus not only on evaluation, we also want to say what's the role of monitoring in comparison to evaluation. That's the reason that some of the countries have monitoring and evaluation systems, and others are only talking about evaluation. If it comes to policy and national systems, I think Azela has already explained it very well. I would say, to make it very easy, the policy says what has to be done, what should be done, and the national monitoring system is the implementation of the policy. So that's really then the structure, and the policy is just the paper. And so, of course, you can have a policy and nothing happens. But if something happens, then the result should be a national monitoring and evaluation system, right? So what to do, what has to be, what is the content of such an evaluation policy? I think most important thing is that it is explained what are the objectives of our national evaluation system. What are the objectives? Is it more accountability? Is it more about learning? What are the objectives? For what is it? The definition to say, okay, what do we as a country, what do we understand under the topic of evaluation? What is it in comparison to monitoring? It is not only monitoring, it is more than that. It's evaluation, and what is it? And the tasks are described. Yeah, who should do what? All that are elements of an evaluation policy. And then if this is implemented, then this you will see if a national evaluation system exists, and if this was well written in the policy, is really transferred and implemented in a national evaluation system. So that's what I would like to say.
Dr. Reinhardt. And the next question is the addressing two countries. This is about what role does the national WOPE play in the building ness in your country? May I start, Ms. Amna?
Yeah, I'll be very short on this. So we don't have a very wide network of OP yet. And as I said, the fragments of efforts happening. So to date, it does not have a significant effect as it should have. And maybe I would like to learn from my other esteemed colleagues.
Okay, thank you so much. How about India, Dr. Rajiv?
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Now, question is very simple. Okay, Funso, thank you for raising that question, what role the WOPI play. But the answer is, I think, it's very, very complex. Now, if we talk about India, so definitely we have a good, active, proactive, vibrant WOPI, just Evaluation Community of India, trying to promote the culture of evaluation in the country, continuously trying to coordinate with different government bodies, both on side the government bodies and other side the non-governmental organizations, the civil society organizations, to bring all these stakeholders together to think about, to create kind of a platform to know from each other and to push, to strengthen that in monitoring and evaluation systems in India. But now, when we talk about national evaluation systems, so it is predominantly we think the government system it would be okay, which may be the kind of overarching kind of system, and which the maybe the other organizations also may kind of follow. But when you talk about the government, I'm not too sure, because there is no evaluation policy as such right now in India, what government agency should be approached or should be most important in this particular position to talk about, to strengthen national evaluation systems. Now, for us, Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office of Niti Aayog is the most active, vibrant, visible government many think tank in India. But always these questions are raised, how they are positioned even within the government systems. Are they equipped enough to, even to kind of draft a policy and take it to different ministries and tell them, look, this is the guideline, or this is the policy that we have formed. Now you might please adopt these guidelines or policies, because many, as I mentioned even in my presentation, many of the departments, ministries might not have even reviewed their guidelines and policies and frameworks in several years. So that's a big question, because if you compare, the kind of the financial cloud actually, DMO is much smaller in front of big ministries in India, like the health or transport or education or finance. So recently, as I mentioned previously, that we formed a evaluation capacity development consortium, and we redefined evaluation capacity. More, it's not only individual capacity, more to create kind of a capable system, okay, beyond individual capacity. So it's capacity of the organizations, capacities of the government, and a kind of a system, ecosystem that will enabling system that will work more for establishing different kind of, and see what kind of systems are maintained. So we thought only if we talk about among us, and only we talk only about, with GMO may not be enough. We somewhere we have to reach out to even to the Ministry of Finance, perhaps, who primarily control the resources, the resource allocation, the financial resources primarily. The good thing is that a couple of years back, ECOI drafted a policy, national evaluation policy, and submitted that to DMO to take it forward. So they definitely, for some time, we know they worked on it. They drafted a revised policy, but then it didn't go anywhere from there. So right now, some of our network members are thinking that let's push the DMO at least to take it forward, to see what happens. If we can even if we can release a draft evaluation policy in India, how the government reacts to that. So let's see what happens. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajiv. And then participants, do you have any questions? Please raise your hand and then ask. If you're not, let's move the next one.
Maybe I come in here with a vote piece, if you're not.
Sure. Thank
So
you.
from my international perspective, I would say VOPs actually, they are an association of professionals, right? So they are interested in evaluation. But actually, my observation in most of that VOPs is that on one side, you have academic people coming from universities, and on the other side, you have practitioners. So people doing evaluations, consultancies, for example. And the interests of these two groups are not always the same. Yeah? So, of course, the academic people more interested in research, in the development of methodologies and things like that. The consultants, the practitioners, are much more interested to get some contracts and doing evaluations and make money out of it. That's a business. Evaluation is also a business. So, and these people are together in one organization, in one association, and this makes it sometimes difficult to develop common objectives where all these people in that association agree on. That's one thing we have not to forget. And secondly, yes, they are professional organizations, even the practitioners. Of course, they understand themselves as professionals doing evaluations, experts in evaluation. It is not, let's say, a lobbyist organization where they understand themselves as the ones going to the government and asking for more evaluations and saying, look, we are the ones, we are promoting evaluation and we want that you do this or that. Actually, some VOPs are doing that, and I would say especially in the global south, not so much in Europe, not so much in North America, yeah, but that's not their main task. Yeah, they are professional organization. They are talking about professional standards, about methodologies, approaches. They support the young and emerging evaluators. They give capacity building and all that. These are what other professional organizations are doing as well, but they are not promoters. It's not actually their role to be a lobbyist for evaluation. And I think that is a main issue. Actually, if you want to promote evaluation in the country, of course, then these VOPs also should be acting like lobbyists and saying, look, we are a strong power. We want that this and this will happen. We talk to the civil society, and of course, we talk to the government. And I think that's an important issue, what has to be done. And of course, if you look at the VOPs, we must be very realistic. These are not very influential associations in a country, usually not. They're much more stronger associations and powers. If you look at parties, if you look at associations like unions and so on, they usually have much more power than a professional organization with a few hundred people. I think that we have to be aware of that, and we have to talk in the VOPs really what's our role and what can we do to influence the civil society, to influence the government to change their mind, to be more interested in evaluation, to make them interested in establishing and implementing policies and national evaluation systems.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reinhardt. Dr. Asela, do you have some perspectives from your country?
Yeah, let me also very quickly add to what other speakers said. Already important things were shared regarding this aspect, VOPES. Now, I mentioned that National Evaluation Policy was first drafted in Sri Lanka in 2003. Actually, it was led by the VOPE. So VOPE has an important role for, advocacy, National Evaluation Policy, system, things like that. And also coordination with other stakeholders. So WOPE drafted the National Evaluation Policy, and then I said it took 15 years to endorse by the government. So throughout these 15 years, different boards of the WOPE advocated the government, governments of those times to endorse the national evaluation policies. So there was, a lot of efforts in this. So WOPE had those efforts. But actually what happened in 2018, there was, group of parliamentarians mobilized by evaluation community, took leadership in promoting evaluation within the parliament and also at the national level. They said to the government in 2018, you have to adapt the national evaluation policy. So you see that the efforts made by the WOPE for a long time, and there was one group, one stakeholder group, parliamentarians, came into the picture and expedited it, right? So what I mentioned here is that WOPE, of course, the advocacy role is important by the WOPE. At the same time, WOPE, if WOPE is partners with other stakeholder groups, maybe academia, good for, academic courses, and also with parliamentarians, young emerging evaluators, some other groups, we can have more results in the country for evaluation or for the evaluation system. At the same time, Sri Lanka Evaluation Association is one of the evaluation associations, or maybe only evaluation association, consistently had national evaluation conferences since 2000. Why I mention this is that, evaluation conference, somebody might think, okay, that is just an event. No, always this was used for capacity building, advocacy, and things like that. And it also shows the strength of the WOPE and also strength of partnerships of different stakeholders for evaluation within the country. And it also raised the voice for evaluations in the country. And I also want to mention, one important thing in this evaluation conferences. In 2003, the chief guest was from the Ministry of Planning at that time, and he invited the WOPE to draft the national evaluation policy. So always SLEVA invited important people for the evaluation conference as chief guest or special guest for advocacy purposes as well. So all these matters, and also WOPE can play a better role in the country for advocacy, capacity building, partnerships, and coordination with other stakeholders to advance the national evaluation agenda in the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the participants' questions and for answers for our speakers. And let's move to our next session. Please, next slide. Yeah, this is the group of picture. Please open your camera and then let's take a picture.
Okay, everyone, please open your camera. Yeah, we have two pages. And which one? Smile, please.
Oh, take it out.
Second page. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ahmed.
Thank you.
And let's move to our next one. This is the special offer for our participants. The book about the institutionalization of the evolution in Asian Pacific. With this following code, you guys have a 20% off. And I am happy to invite Mr. Yutin for our closing remarks. Yutin, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Gerald. This was the third webinar in the series on landscape of monitoring and evaluation policies and systems in the Asia Pacific region. And I'm happy that even this one got a good response from different participants who have sat throughout the session. This was organized by the NEPS theme of the Asia Pacific Regional Evaluation Strategy, the promoting NEPS theme. at the start in 2020, when this team was formed, we realized that the documentation of NEPs in the Asia Pacific region is missing. And we focused on documenting what is happening in different countries, coming out with status assessment. Couple of reports were brought out in 21, 22. And even in the regional dialogues, we focused on sharing of updates. But those regional dialogues typically did not have enough time to share about each country's progress or current condition and so on. When the book came out, the book which has been referred to in this webinar series throughout, when that book came out last year, we realized that this is a very good opportunity for us to focus on each country, go in depth, understand what is happening, compare it across with different countries and so on. And so over the last 3 webinars, we have covered Japan, Korea, Australia, Nepal, Philippines, China, and now India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. And I'm very happy that we have been able to see a comparative picture between these countries, understand each country's perspective, local context, and so on, and understand a lot of things about what is the nuances in these countries. And hopefully the participants will be able to learn a lot from these, and we are also able to learn from each other. And some interesting questions have come up in this very last webinar about what is NEPs, importance of policy versus system, and role of VOPEs, etc. And these are giving us ideas for what we can do in the next year. And the webinar series has been possible because of our partners, the Center for Evaluation at University of Saarland, Center of Evaluation at University of Sri Jayawardhanapure, and our social media partner, the APC Hub. I thank them all. And big thank to Professor Stockman for agreeing to do this based on the book, and also coming in to share the summaries and comparisons and give his expert remarks in each of the webinars. I also thank the APIA promote team and the NEPS team that has worked throughout the year to make this a big success. And I request you all to join us for our regional dialogue later this month. Further notices will be given by Gerald, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have a PU announcement. The Asian Pacific Journal of Evolution is released. Please read the following QR code and get it. Please next one. And also please joining the Manila Declaration, signing for this QR code. And also academic symposium on the M&E education. It will be organized in Sri Lanka, December 2 to 4th. So please join for this event. That's joint organizing partners, Center for the Evolution, and also APIA, and with other partners. And also we have a series of the webinars and events. Please stay in tune the APS page. Also, our next webinar is the Asian Pacific Regional Dialogue on the National Evaluation Policies and Systems. It will be November 26th. Please join this event. Also, we have another event, the APIA webinar, the test of the salt, in immersive webinar on participatory evaluation. And please join this event, November 27th. And please next one. Yeah, also another APIA webinar is the nexus of the environmental, social, and governance, and social impact measurement and management, and their value in SDG evaluation. This event will be organized in 28. Please join this event. And thank you so much for all participants and all our speakers. And APIA has so many connections. Please joining the Asian Pacific Evaluation Association by the LinkedIn, also the Twitter, also Facebook, also with the Instagram, also our web pages asianpacificeval.org. If you have any other questions related with this webinar and also other things, please email to us apia.coordinator@gmail.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.